Well, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We have two agendas we're going to be following this evening. We have our Committee of the Whole agenda, and that's going to be followed by our Council meeting. We're going to start off with a prayer from Councillor Bill Steele, and that will be followed by the National Anthem by Mr. Joe Longville. Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Worship. Heavenly Father, source of all truth and wisdom, who knows and loves the whole creation, watch over our community, that truth may prevail over distortion, wisdom triumph over recklessness, and the concerns of every person be heard. Amen.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Well, thank you, Joe. As always, well done.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My pleasure, as always.
Members of Council, first off, we're going to ask the clerk if she has any addendum items to introduce this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. None this evening.
Thank you, Ashley. Members of Council, I need a motion to confirm the agenda, please. Councillor Desmarais, Councillor Steele. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. Any disclosures of interest this evening? With none, move on to determination of committee items requiring a separate discussion. Councillor Kenny.
Item 8, Your Worship.
Item 8.
8.
Further? With none, Yvonne, did you want to talk on item 1? Okay.
Item 1.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. I'd like to also raise, if a member of council wants to raise it for me, item 2. Okay. Ange? Item 5. Frank? And item 11. B? Okay, with no further items, members of council will now entertain a motion to accept the remainder of the items not being lifted this evening. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Danch, Councillor Doucette. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. We have one delegation this evening. With us, we have Ms. Mickey Main regarding the Downtown Community Improvement Plan design, the bump out features, and to present a petition concerning same. Members of council, in your agenda, it's on page 7 for letter 2, council. Mickey, welcome. Thank you. You're welcome.
This down now? Okay. I hope you'll bear with me a bit because that's, the technology is not, I'm not quite up to it, so I'll do my best. At any rate, I'm here this evening to present a petition. And as you can see on the screen here, we, the undersigned, are opposed to the downtown Port Colborne Community Improvement Plan design plan that would see the roadway narrowed and the sidewalk expanded at every street corner for the following reasons. Narrowing roads will slow traffic and cause customers to avoid downtown, decrease maneuverability for vehicles, particularly large trucks. And also bottlenecks will form at key intersections, particularly the Clarence Street approach to the bridge. This is a photo. I'll just back up just a wee bit because the community improvement plan is not on the city website. It is in the council agenda from December, but you couldn't go on the city website to find it. And even when the part that is on the agenda isn't there in its entirety, it's really difficult to look at and see carefully. So I came to City Hall and I took photos of the display boards. I thought they might be here. I guess they aren't. The planning department thought they might be able to bring them so you could look at them once again. At any rate, I took photos, and what you're seeing here are my photos from the display boards. It's the best way I could show you. Sometimes you need a picture to help you understand. So when I talk about narrowing the roads, you can see that on the screen, the gray area, the darker gray area is the road, and you can see the curb extensions in sort of a goldy yellow there. And there, the road is narrower than it is where the curb extensions aren't, and that's what I'm referring to. Talking about bottlenecks at the bridge. And again, this photo is the corner of West and Clarence. And of course, it'll be more difficult to pass traffic, both that is stopped for the bridge, that is, pass it on the left when you have to go up and make your turn either right or left onto West Street when there's a line of traffic on Clarence Street. And also, if you notice the last parking space that would be on the south side of Clarence at the corner, you can't kind of scoot out if you want to, so it really does decrease the maneuverability for vehicles at the bridge. And as a result, I think that traffic will bottleneck and back up a lot more. The plan also doesn't have loading zones. The lack of loading zones and unloading zones in this plan will force delivery vehicles to block traffic. In other words, instead of pulling in easily, they will not be able to, and you'll have to stop in the lane of traffic in order to affect this. And it's really important for businesses because receiving shipments of goods and so on and so forth is part of the way you do business. And the only way you can do it for most businesses downtown is through the street. For some large vehicles, loading vehicles included, parallel parking is not an option. Pulling in at the corner is the best way to avoid blocking the lane of traffic. Okay. Oh, there's a picture of the loading zones. Got that down there. So the next slide is no parking from here to corner. So these bump outs, curb extensions, I know that the consultant that did the plan called them, I think, sidewalk expansions. There's all sorts of names for them, so I hope when I refer to them, you know what I'm talking about. But what they're doing is taking the roadway from the no parking zone from here to corner, you can't park from here to the corner, and they're preventing vehicles from entering it because that part is being added to the sidewalk. So removing the no parking zones permanently prevents vehicles from using the corner for any reason. Stopping to drop off passengers without stopping traffic would not be possible. And you remember that even though that zone is a no parking zone, you can't park there, but it's not illegal to stop and drop the people off. That's not illegal, and it's perfectly permissible. And it's also a lot easier, certainly if you have people who are mobility challenged and you want to get them out of the vehicle and safely onto the sidewalk. It's one of the best places, at least from my experience. Also, at the corners, passing a left-hand turning vehicle on the right would no longer be an option. Now, we were told at the BIA when this issue was brought up that that was against the law. But when we looked into it, it is not against the law. That's perfectly permissible, and it's the way traffic moves a little more smoothly and a little bit more easily downtown. Cycling. I don't think I have to say too much about this. When you start narrowing the road at the corners, it means that cyclists will feel forced into the path of motor vehicles, and it's less safe for cyclists. I don't know if I need to say any more than that. Key parking spaces. And this was an issue that was just brought up at the last BIA meeting. The comfort level of perhaps of the members of the CIP committee was that they hadn't lost parking spaces. But I looked up that chart, which talks about which spaces get lost and what spaces get moved and that type of thing. And I'll give you a quick example. Some key on-street parking spaces will be lost. For example, King Street, from Kent to Charlotte, so we're going to start over there at Kent Street and go down to Charlotte, you lose 2. From Charlotte to Clarence, you lose 1. From Clarence to Park, you lose 2. From Park to Princess, there aren't any spaces. That's where the train tracks are. From Princess to Elgin, which is the area between, the museum, the library, you gain 5. So it means that, sure, it works out even, that same number lost equals a number found, but the total doesn't really reflect where those parking spaces are lost and how important they might be to the businesses that are in front of them. And that's one example. I can, there's no point going into it any further, although I imagine that looking at some of the options there, there are a lot of other businesses that may be affected at any rate. Decreased visibility. And this is a picture of West and Clarence. Again, the idea of doing the curb extensions, or sidewalk expansions or bump outs, whatever you want to call them, was one of the things we were first promised was that, or not promised, but it was stated that it would be safer for pedestrians because it's a shorter distance to cross. But I think if you look at the plan, you will find that there probably isn't even one corner, maybe marginally one, that is marginally wider. Many of them are narrower at the corners. So you can see the corner right there at West and Clarence. There's not very much there. So as a matter of fact, it's the same distance, perhaps marginally longer, for pedestrians to cross. It hasn't changed that safety aspect. And as a matter of fact, if you bring those curb extensions out and you look at what's on those curb extensions, in this case, 1 bench, 1 light standard, 1 tree, 2 boulders, large boulders, a planter, a bike rack, and along the edge, 5 bollards. Those boulders, by the way, when I asked the question, those boulders are to sit on. You tell me, I don't know. At any rate, 5 bollards along the edge. You know what I mean by the bollards, those things that stick out, whatever. We'll see some pictures of them later. At any rate, I'm suggesting that if it's a problem for cars parked there for visibility for pedestrians and other traffic, I would imagine that this would be just as difficult, certainly. Okay. This is an interesting one. This photo is from Queen Street in Niagara Falls. I'm suggesting, and I think others would also agree with me, that the snow plowing of parking lanes will be more challenging and costly when you're driving snow plow down the parking lane and you go out around the curb extension and back in again, around it in again. It's really difficult to get the snow cleaned up properly, and snow removal in parking lanes is an issue. Also, sidewalk and curb snow removal will be more challenging and costly. And again, the idea that you would now have to go around your 5 bollards, around your benches, and so on and so forth, is going to be more costly. This photo is from Queen Street in Niagara Falls, and I clipped it out of the newspaper because there was an accompanying article. And apparently, it's going to cost up to $20,000 additional dollars for Queen Street snow removal because the newly installed streetscaping features make it impossible for existing maintenance equipment to plow through. So that's an issue in Queen Street, and sometimes we have to learn from others and maybe look at that more carefully. This is a photo of downtown Crystal Beach. In some sections in downtown Crystal Beach, parking has been removed for the purpose of adding trees and benches. And so there's what that looks like there. One of my counselors had stated that since these things are everywhere, that there would be no reason why Port Colborne shouldn't have them. And again, I wanted to show some pictures of where they have them. So that's downtown Crystal Beach. They have curb extensions also, in addition to removing parking in order to effect a wider sidewalk. And these curb extension bump outs for benches and flower pots, similar to the design for Port Colborne, but a much smaller version. Let's see now. Going the wrong direction here, but that's okay. Here we are. This is snow damage, and you can see in this photo the bollards, and they're somewhat askew and so on. The curb extension is there to provide a bench, and the bollards are there to protect the bench, and the snowplow damages them. They're pretty close to the curb, and that's what happens. Oh, here we go. I'm going to go the wrong, again, okay. By now, you've probably noticed in these photos the hazard signs which are necessary to warn motorists and snowplow drivers. Apparently, they're also dangerous because motorists don't notice the curb extensions, and snowplows, especially when snow comes, they cover them up and you can't see them. So you have to have hazard signs. I asked the Crystal Beach restaurant owner what he thought about the curb extensions. I went a little bit further than I should have. What he thought about the curb extensions, and although he hasn't been there long enough to know what it was like before them, he did say that it was very, very nice in the summertime. The flower pots on the extensions were very pretty in the summer. But if given the choice, he would trade them for parking. Flowers could be located elsewhere, is what he said. Okay, I went to downtown Ridgeway, and the title on that one is Size Matters. In Port Colborne, the majority of the sidewalk expansions are 15 meters long. That's 49.5 feet. And to give you an idea about 49.5 feet, I measured council chambers from this wall here to that wall straight over where the photo is, just below the monitors, and about 2 feet out in the hallway is 49.5 feet. That would be from the corner to the end, is what many, many of the curb extensions are. So it's sort of like this one, but on steroids. Okay. While the design was being developed for Port Colborne, we were told that the city bylaw, later referred to as an industry standard, required a 15-meter setback for parking at intersections. In other words, there was a bylaw in force that said that you could not park closer than 15 meters to the corner, and that was the justification for doing the bump outs, that type of a thing. We later learned that that wasn't the case. There wasn't actually a bylaw. You could do 15 meters if you wanted to, but it wasn't that it was mandated. Later, that was changed to state that it was an industry standard. But as you can see here, downtown Ridgeway, which was done very recently, are nowhere near that size. Note the fact that the bench is out in the intersection with little or no protection from the elements. And there are no hazard signs here, however, yet. But perhaps that large garbage receptacle helps with the hazard. But maybe they'll get the hazard signs later. I'm not certain. I'm going in the wrong direction yet again. Here we are. The benches are in the intersection, and I wanted to make note of that because it's not surprising, probably to most of us here, that many people bemoan the fact that you can no longer drive into and out of the first and last parking spot on the block, and that level of maneuverability, convenience, that type of thing is lost with the curb extensions at every corner. Then I went to downtown Welland. This is King Street in Welland, and as you note, let me go a little bit closer here. There's a hazard sign. Same thing. And by the way, the downtown Welland was, I believe, was designed by the same people that designed the plan for Port Colborne. When we tell people that curb extensions are planned for every intersection in downtown Port Colborne, the first response is invariably, why? And when you look at this photo, it's hard to give an answer to that question. Now here's another photo of downtown Welland, and it's on Division Street. It shows some more curb extensions and more hazard signs. If you look down a little bit further, you can see some more hazard signs. And just to the right, under the Holy Trinity sign, are several bollards that are also askew. So there are 10 reasons to modify the CIP design. I'm going to recap for you. Decreased maneuverability, particularly for large vehicles. There may be bottlenecks at the bridge. No loading zones. Loss of use by vehicles at corners. Cyclists are squeezed out. Key parking spaces are lost. Decreased visibility for pedestrian and motorists. Money, extra money for snow plowing. Extra money for snow removal. And as you can see by the photos, extra money for maintenance for all these extra things, and particularly the ones that are closest to the road. The most important reason to eliminate the sidewalk extensions from the downtown Port Colborne design is because your constituents and our customers do not want them. The people who were most anxious to sign the petition were those who had firsthand experience with CIP improvements, which included some form of curb extensions or bump outs, or removal of parking for the purpose of adding street fixtures. In other words, people who live here, work here, live there, that type of a thing. Having some experience with them in other communities that have this type of plan, and they don't like it, and they don't want it. And we have over 300 signatures on the petition. I have it here to submit this evening, and counting. I didn't go door to door. I didn't work really hard at it, to be honest with you. I had a compatriot here that assisted me, and a lot of people were calling and asking to sign this petition. It was very easy. So I guess the comment is no thank you. It is possible to beautify downtown, add trees, benches, flowers, and bike racks without resorting to sidewalk expansions. Please modify the CIP design to eliminate the sidewalk expansions and retain the current roadway sidewalk configuration. The difficulty is that these things look really pretty on paper, and there's no doubt about it. And they may even look pretty when they're done, depending on how you feel about it. But the problem is that once it's done, you don't have a chance. You can't go back. And so taking another look at this is probably, well, I think we'd all be well advised to do that, because I think we can do some way better things without taking real estate away from the roads and adding it to the sidewalks. That's basically my presentation. I hope councillors will have some questions. I did a lot of research on this. I looked up on the internet, so on and so forth. So if you have any questions, a lot of people have spoken to me. I spoke twice to the BIA committee. I went in February to inform them that we were doing this petition. I was again there last week. So.
Great, thanks, Vicki. Great job. Members of council, are there any questions or comments? Councillor Danch.
I just want to say thanks for coming in, Mickey, and just a couple questions. You've been a merchant in Port Colborne since when?
Vicki?
86.
That's pretty good. I mean, you definitely have some longevity in our community, and I do support you in your idea. I am a Main Street merchant that's living the former dream, and to me, these curb extensions are not the best idea. I'd like to say I agree with Mickey, of course, and the idea with the benches and the flowers and the beautification and the lights and stuff done properly, I think they're a great idea. Slowing down traffic, I unload tractor trailers all the time. I know what these guys go through. I was downtown at Meridian Credit Union the other day, and I had to back my vehicle up for a guy to make a right-hand turn onto King Street heading north. It's tight down there, and I know we don't have tractor trailers every day, but you have these people that don't know how to drive, and you need to give them every possible space. So I do agree with you, Mick. I may not be the only person in the room that does, but I have to go along with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Further questions? With none, Mickey, once again, thank you.
I wanted to know if you wanted to give Mabel Livingston an opportunity to say something. She is also here for the same reason. It's up to you.
Members of council? Do I have a motion to that effect, please?
Do you want to
Lee.
come forward, Mabel?
First off, I need Lee, mover and seconder. B. Barb, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. And a motion to accept the second delegation. B. Bill, questions, comments? All in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Mabel, welcome.
Thank you.
Great to see you.
This is the first time I've been in here. It's a beautiful room. I just wanted to make a comment that when I approach people discussing this issue, I am taken aback by the anger that I see. And it upsets me that this is happening in my town. I've lived here for 55 years and worked here. So I guess my question is, why would you want to do something that the general public does not want to happen? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mabel. If I can just make one comment. Anger, I think, may be a strong word and maybe not appropriate. I think for the most part what we're doing here is we're putting a community improvement plan together that's involved a heck of a lot of people, with the BIA, the business community, and those that have been part of this process from day one. I would replace the word, I would replace the anger word with the word basically working together. I'll say it that way. The words working together to try and come up with a solution for improving that part of the community.
I realize that's what's happening.
That's right. And
I'm telling you what I see.
yeah, and it's unfortunate that people get angry for a decision that hasn't really been made yet. I think council is going through that process right now. And I would encourage those, instead of getting angry, get involved like Mickey is, and yourself and others. And that way council will make the appropriate decision that's based on the thoughts of the community, as well as those within the community that work there every day, such as the BIA. Thank you, Mabel. Appreciate it. And thank you, Mickey. Yes, if you want to bring that forward, Mickey, I can enter that into the record. Thank you.
You're welcome.
With no further questions, comments? Members, none? We'll now move on to the Regional Council's report. Councillor Barrick, welcome.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to take the opportunity this evening to first recognize a colleague and a friend of not only mine, but many in the community as well as you, Mr. Mayor. And that's to mention the Peter Cormos tribute that we had at our last Regional Council meeting. Many of us wore orange shirts, Amir and I as well, and cowboy boots as a recognition to Peter and all that he's done for this riding and this community, as well as Ontario. There will be a memorial held for Peter May 11th as well at Pleasant View Memorial, and I'm sure it'll be very well attended. So with that said, there's a couple of other pieces of regional news that I'm sure most of you folks have already heard about, but in my report today, I'd like to mention as well that Mike Trojan, our CAO, has announced his retirement effective May 31st. Given his 13 years as CAO and 27 years at the region, I'm sure we owe Mike a debt of gratitude for his service and commitment, and wish him the best moving forward. I'll certainly keep this council up to date as to the process for moving forward with another CAO when the time is appropriate as well. It being Earth Day today, I did also want to mention that folks can pre-order their rain barrels online on the region's website, niagararegion.ca. Pickup is April 25th at regional headquarters, and the rain barrels are $50 with proceeds going to the United Way. The regional chair also had a State of the Region address on Friday. He focused on regional services, economic development, and communication. And as many know, this term we've attempted to have better communication with our partners in the community, as well as constituents, electorates, ratepayers, taxpayers. To that end, part of it, you may have seen a wrap on local newspapers across the region, which gave a lot of the financial information as to the region's budget, where is it going. Over $800 million every year the region spends, and much of it on community services, roads, policing, public health, water, wastewater, emergency medical services. So there's an encouragement for folks to get informed, and to provide their feedback as well. And certainly I'm available. I know the mayor's available to sit on the region locally here. And certainly folks can go online. There's a survey there about the budget that they can provide feedback there also. Such a large budget, over $800 million, certainly there's areas that we can find efficiencies. One way that we are doing that is through a new financial management system. Well, why do we need a new financial management system? Well, because there's significant risk in maintaining the current system that we have. There's so many different software and financial systems within the region, given the different components that I spoke about. It's often disjointed. It's not sustainable. Workflows and approvals are manual, as dispersed information management, redundant systems, and lack of meaningful analytics. The objective is to simplify and enhance the financial environment, to migrate towards a tightly integrated finance environment. There is a cost to do that, however, and it already has been approved in the 2013 budget. It costs about $13 million of capital investment necessary to mitigate further financial reputation risks. However, there are several significant benefits that will be realized by the region with a payback period of approximately 7 years and a savings of $25 million over 10 years. The tangible savings are realized mainly through 3 different components. One is cost avoidance. So $6 million will be saved through cost avoidance that's related to replacing and maintaining similar standalone finance systems. $2 million saved through processing efficiencies related to reduction in finance transactional resources, and $16.5 million through procurement savings related to technology-aided adoption of best practices. So again, overall savings of approximately $25 million over 10 years. So once again, Mr. Mayor, this is one of those low-hanging fruits that we can gather and move forward in finding the efficiencies, not only tangible means, but also the intangible as well. So that's my report this evening, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Barrick. Members of council, are there any questions or comments? With none, David, well done. Great job. Members, your turn. Councillors' items, new business. Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe tomorrow, we will be receiving from Chief Cartwright a report that deals with the Fire Master Plan Committee's review of core services, and that's what we're going to be tackling next Monday in our business meeting. So it is extremely important that when you get this email, go through it very, very carefully and familiarize yourself with it. Because when we deal with it next Monday, it's going to, it will have a huge impact on our fire department where we go. So I know the chief has some comments as well, and would like him to have that opportunity as well now, if that would be okay with council. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. Just to let everybody know, the Environmental Committee held their Environmental Earth Day cleanup on Saturday. We had about 25 volunteers come out. That's members of the committee and their family and their friends. And I can't remember, yeah, a couple of the MIAC. And we had a scout club, but I can't remember what pack it was.
School kids
St. John Bosco. But anyways, we had a great, even though it was freezing, I kept trying to convince everybody, why don't we do it next Saturday when it's going to be warmer? But no, everybody wanted to forge ahead. I just didn't want to say that my son and my daughter-in-law and my 3 oldest grandchildren went and did Lock 8 Park. Every group took a section. We did Lock 8 Park. And I want to say I was very disappointed because we have tons of garbage receptacles there with a 0 garbage in because all the garbage was on the ground. We picked up three garbage bags, and I mean large garbage bags, and the garbage bags and the gloves were all supplied by JBL, because we have a member from that staff on the committee on the coffee cups, Tim Hortons coffee cups, and cigarettes packages. And I want to tell anybody that's listening, put your garbage in the receptacles. That's why we have them there. The ground is not your place to throw garbage. My grandkids were appalled at all the cups and stuff. And I mean, you're trying to teach your grandchildren and your children good habits by having the receptacles there. It's a beautiful park, which even though it's Lock H Park, I keep calling it Skateboard Park because we have the skateboard park there and all the kids are there. But even though it was cold, we had our day. So we celebrated it, had a great time, had a great turnout. But I'm telling you, it should, with all the receptacles there, we should have not found the garbage that we did there. And we ended up, I think, with about 25 bags, right, Chris? We had about 25 bags of garbage and just that along the trails and in that park. And we had one group go all the way down to the other side of Elizabeth and did that area. So we had a great time. And just to remind people that, you know, this is your community. Help keep it clean. It's an important thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny. Well stated. Councillor Demeray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2 items, same location. I'm going to go to Lock 8 Skateboard Park as well. I have had calls from several parents and several people who do use the park. They love it. They're so happy with it. The kids are there. They don't want to go home even for meals. A couple of mothers are trucking meals over to the park, bringing their kids their lunch because they don't want to leave. So that's a great thing. But there's some recurring complaints. One having to do with dogs. For some reason, people seem to think it's okay to go to that park with dogs off the leash, and it's absolutely not okay. One person that brings a quite large Rottweiler and lets the dog roam around. Well, kids are on bicycles. Dogs love to chase kids on bicycles. It's just a natural thing. It's a dangerous situation that really we have to get a handle on it. I don't know exactly what we could do, but perhaps staff may be able to address that in some way. That's something we have to watch. And also parking. The people are parking all along Mellenby. There's a reluctance to actually walk through the park. It's not that it's a long way, but to walk through the park from the parking lot to the skateboard park to watch their kids, they park along the road instead. That's another accident waiting to happen. So possibly we could get some parking enforcement started there. But other than that, those are things that are probably easily remedied. But I got to tell you, the response to the skateboard park is just overwhelmingly positive. People are very happy with it, and staff should actually take a bow with the work that they've done on that. It's really paying off.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Hakeem or Peter, Mr. Sinez, did you want to comment on those 2 items?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can comment on the dog situation, and what I will do tomorrow is contact our Well and Humane Society and have them patrol that area maybe a little bit more and check it out. If there's any particular times that may have been, we can send them out in those times, but other than that, we can tell them to do a little bit more patrolling around that area now that it is more active park, so we'll do that tomorrow.
Okay. What I would suggest first off is if we look at some signage in that area to let the folks know that dogs shouldn't be running astray. And of course that gives us the ability also to enforce any bylaws that we have in place in the parks. And secondly is with respect to parking along Mellenby as well. Mr. Lee, I'm not sure if there's any signage in that area, but we might want to look at that. And then of course with that said, enforce that bylaw with respect to Mellenby Avenue, and hopefully the folks will start parking in the allocated parking location, which is at the north side of the park, and walk the extra minute or 2 down to the park. That fine? Mr. Lee?
Yes, Your Worship. Just to let everyone know that that's a regional road, so we'll have to do some dealings with the region to take care of the signage.
That's fine. Great. Anything further, Councillor? That's fine. Great. Further new business. Councillors Adams, Councillor Danch.
It must be the nice weather that brings all our constituents out, because they've been coming into the hardware store quite regularly here. I had a call from a fellow on Sheba Crescent there. I guess a vehicle went off the road and into the ditch there, and it was Kevin Thomas there, and he was the family that we recognized at the Vale Health and Wellness Center at the grand opening. And they're pretty adamant about being outside and being healthy and whatnot. And maybe just, I guess we'll direct it toward Mr. Lee there about possibly getting some slow down children playing. There's a lot of children in that Sheba Crescent area, First Avenue and whatnot, and they've got some concerns about the cars racing through there. He did ask me about some passive speed bumps, but I'm sure we're far away from even putting those on any type of asphalt here. But if we could maybe look into some slow down, watch our children signs, because our children are important to us, of course. I'm 50% out of that. Anyways, the second item I had, I guess, again, is to Mr. Lee. Hawthorne Heights there, some of the residents were concerned about the amount of grass that had been flipped up on their lawns from the snow plows and whatnot, and hoping that the works crews could maybe get it through there and have a look and pull some grass back and tidy up some gardens that had been abused, with the winter weather. And other than that, I think we've had a pretty good week. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor Danch. Mr. Lee?
Through you, Your Worship. Yes, we actually have crews out doing the repairs on the boulevards and that from snowplow damage, so I would guesstimate that we'll be in that neighborhood in the next few days.
Thank you, Councillor. As well, with the Sheba area, now, there is a park in that area, the Roshimansky Memorial Park, and if we can look at some signage over there too with the kids playing, for some kids playing signs. I'm actually surprised they're not up already, because there is a park in the area. So if we can look at that as well, Chris, it'd be great.
Yes, Your Worship. We'll have a look at that first thing.
Good, thank you, Chris. Further new business, Councillor's items. With none, I'm now going to go to staff with any updates. Chief Cartwright?
Your Worship, thank you. Members of Council, I think Councillor Butters expressed the information that is going to be made available tomorrow. It's about a 16-page document. It shows you everything that we do in the fire service in the city. It's been a lot of work has gone into this particular document. There will be a lot of backup material that will be made available to you next Monday night during the course of the review of this particular information. But I'd like you to, again, as Councillor Butters already alluded to, please take the time to take a look through it. If you do have any questions, please don't be afraid to contact me. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Any further updates from staff? You're good? Okay, none. We'll now move on to the adoption of the minutes. I do have one set of minutes here, the minutes of the 11th meeting regular of Committee of the Whole, dated April 8th, 2013. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Danch, Councillor Steele, any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you, members. We'll now move on to items for consideration this evening. We'll start off with item 1, Councillor Doucette. Councillor Doucette, excuse me. Councillor Kenny?
Your Worship, I wondered if we could move up item 8, because we have that one that I pulled, just because we have the proponent here who traveled from Toronto and has a drive back. So I'd just like to pull 8 first, if we could.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny. Council's fine with that? Okay, so we'll bump up item 8. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Your Worship. Much appreciated, Council.
You're welcome, Councillor Kenny. Any time for you.
Thanks. Department of Community and Corporate Services, Community Services Division, report number 2013-14, subject, report the result of the request for proposal for the operation of Nickel Beach. The recommendation that the Council of the City of Port Colborne, through Community Services, continues to manage and operate Nickel Beach as budgeted in 2013 season.
Do you have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Danch, any questions or comments to that? Councillor Kenny.
Thank you again, Your Worship. I have one of the proponents here, and as I said, he traveled from Toronto. We wanted to speak to the report that you have in front of you. So if you could all turn to page 55. There are some items if he'd like to address. If Council would give him the opportunity, that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny. If I can ask for leave of Council to allow a delegation to speak on this report. Councillor Doucette. Councillor Kenny, questions or comments on leave? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Move to allow. Move Councillor Kenny. Seconder, Councillor Doucette. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. I'm assuming you met Mr. Waynes? Yes. Dallas, come on up. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Just want to press the gray button. You're all set, Dallas.
All right,
Once
thank you,
again,
Mr.
welcome.
Mayor. I'm slightly nervous, and I'm new to this, so if I break protocol, I apologize in advance. I would like to respond to the report that you do have in front of you. Basically, the only reason I'm here today is I'm for the beach. I love the beach. I grew up on the beach. I live in Toronto now, but for the past 5 years, every weekend I come and I'm for the beach. We've preemptively quit our current tourism jobs in the hopes that we actually get this RFP. We're ready to devote 18-hour days to revitalize the beach and in turn revitalize Port Colborne. The recommendation that you have in front of you was prepared by Elena Kane. The lovely Miss Kane right there, she is the current supervisor of the beach, and I know that I'm kind of defending myself here as what you have in front of you is kind of against us, and I'm not sure whether, since she's the current beach supervisor, if there's kind of a conflict of interest there. I'm not really sure, but let me answer all of the items in front of you. It states there that we have a very limited demographic, which is true. We are targeting a group of people 18 to 29. I believe you all have iPads in front of you. That's basically the same target market that Apple actually goes after, so we're not really changing anything. We want families. I have a feeling that a lot of people here might be concerned that we're not, or that we don't want families at the beach. We want families. We love families coming to the beach. Families will come on the weekends. The reason that we're going to target the 18 to 29 is we need people there on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We're a very short seasonal business. We want to ramp up tourism, and by targeting that group of people, they are the college students, the university students. They have part-time jobs. They have expendable income, and they can come on Monday to Friday. Families, we love them. Our 3 strategies are not articulated. If you'll see on page 5, 6, and 7, each of our strategies is outlined. Again, it's a very basic plan. Like, we weren't trying to write a novel, just a basic business plan. All of our ideas can be articulated further if needed. We're open to questions at any time. Financial inconsistencies. 100% yes. It's a total guess as to what's going to happen in the future. I would love to be able to predict exactly what's going to happen. Chances are we did miss things here or there. It's not an exact science, but we did our best over the past few months putting it all together. It also states that our marketing plan is only social media. While social media is very important to our plan, our target market are on their smartphones 24/7, right? So that's one of the main reasons that we are doing a lot of advertising on social media. But we also have 9 other ideas, which is also stated on page 5 of the operations plan. And there's even some new ideas that since we've submitted this about 3 weeks ago, we have come up with new ideas, such as offering beach yoga, offering fitness classes on the beach. We put that out to a few people. All of a sudden, we have 7 yoga teachers and fitness teachers. One, which is actually Jen Thomas, who won the valet 1-year thing, who's also my cousin. But so things like that aren't in the plan itself, but we keep coming up with new ideas as we go. And our main goal here is to improve the beach, to improve Port. Having grown up on it and going there all the time, I have a passion for it. My partner and I, you're getting 2 full-time people that are committing every second of every day to promote this beach, and that's what you're getting with us. One item here questions the imagery that we are using. Now, our advertising that we plan, it's in line with the most popular beach brands on the planet, whether it be Roxy, Quicksilver, whether even Nike, Adidas, we have our target market and we're going after that target market, and that's a way that we have to go after that. What you may not like, your grandkids might like, or your kids might like. We have a target and we're going after that. We can't target everybody. We have to go after a certain group of people, and that's what we've done. And the next item lacks our related inexperience. When I lived in Asia, I ran an event business. Susan and I have both worked in the travel industry for a combined over 12 years. We currently work for, we're trying to figure out on the way here, the top 10 travel agency in the world in Flight Center. I know there's not any flight centers around here, but globally, our company is a monster. And with that, also being, within the travel industry, we have a lot of connections. We've both traveled the world. We've been to over 30 countries combined. We have a passion for this, and a lot of it is on the beach. The days and hours of operation, well, it states there that it's kind of similar. Granted, it is similar, but currently the beach closes at 6 p.m. We can't have one of our main tourist attractions close at 6 p.m. We have to be open till sunset, without a doubt. To get people from Hamilton, St. Catharines, or even Toronto, to get them to come, they're not going to come if the beach closes at 6, or a lot less likely. If we're open till sunset each and every day, we can go after those markets in Toronto, in Niagara Falls, in Niagara-on-the-Lake, Hamilton, the places that are further away. I shouldn't have said Niagara Falls, that's close by. Ignore that one. It questions our staffing policies. Our main goal is customer satisfaction. We work in customer service right now, and our goal is service, 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 service the client, hands down. It may not say in there exactly, it may not outline exactly what you were looking for, but that's something that can be adjusted. I did inquire as to what the city, was looking for in terms of staffing policies. Government staffing policies are very, very extensive. When it comes to us, that is a small business, we're not going to have, a 25-page staffing policy because it's not needed. So in terms of we need to adjust what we have there to please council, then yes, that can be done. We are asking for the beach grading simply because to allow people on the beach, we don't have a machine obviously that big. Whereas the city has that easy access, for the city. Like we're basically hoping for a partnership. We do want certain things like that. We would like some assistance with the garbage. But when it comes down to it, I think the goal is the same for everybody. We want to improve it. We want to make the beach a major, major tourist destination, and we'll do everything we can to approach it that way. I think what we're asking for is very little. We're investing all of our time into this. We are taking the risk to run this beach ourselves. We only have basically 3 months to do it, so we are taking that risk. It's currently losing money. If you were to hire on a staff member to work in tourism, I assume the wage would be at least 40 grand. So you're getting 2 people that are going to put all their time and energy into making this successful. Like, there's a reason that I come back to Port every weekend to go to the beach. And one thing over the years since I moved back to Canada in 2007 is the last 5 years I have not seen the beach go up. It's been a steady decline. It's a beautiful place, that hasn't changed. But there hasn't been any events, there's not anything new on offer. The cleanliness can go either way at times. And we're just here to turn this around. That's all we want. We've been actually trying to move back to the area for over a year. It's not easy. There's not a lot of jobs out there. You know, we want to turn this around. So by doing this, you know, we're coming in here, we're trying to create 2 jobs for ourselves. It's not just for us. It's for the whole region, for the whole community, to create something that people are proud of. That's what we want. Conclusion, pretty much as I say, last year Susan and I came to Port from Toronto pretty much every weekend. With the most consistent statement from everyone, friends, like other guests, is it's underutilized. There's a lot that we can be doing that's not being done. And that's where, you know, that's where we come in. You know, we would be there on a beautiful day and the beach would be nearly empty. When I say nearly empty, even if you have 50 cars there, to me that is nearly empty for a beach that gorgeous. Like, I've spent time in South America, in Asia, in Australia. Beaches are packed. Here, even if you have 50 cars, that, you know, that might be good in some books. To me, that's underutilized. You can have so many more people there. The past years, the beach has been losing money. So like I said, we're here to take on that risk. Now I know some of you, I think I touched on this earlier, some of you may be concerned that we are not targeting families. If you'll see on page 27, we did a survey last year, and 64% of the beach guests were aged 35 and under. As business people, we're going after our target market. We're not against families, we're for families. We want families at the beach. But when you target your advertising, you have to go after a specific niche, and that's what we're doing. We know our market, we know how to sell a beach crowd. Allow us to take it over, and we'll see positive changes. And I invite all the questions you may have.
Great job, Dallas.
Thank you.
Members of council, are there any questions or comments? Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Dallas. Thank you, and I've seen you at the beach because I have a boat.
Yep.
I'm there all the time, and
Yep.
my kids are there all the time, and they are part of your demographics. So in looking at your numbers here, and I know they're rough numbers, but you're looking at about a $55,000 loss over the first 2 years, correct?
Correct.
How do you expect to handle that?
Dallas?
I don't know how I answer. This
Yeah,
is where
just-
the protocol does.
Just answer them, you're good.
Well, we have saved money up. We have, startup money that we are investing into this. And we also have our wages to be more or less spread out throughout the year. Because if we're going to do this, we can't, chances are we're going to have part-time jobs in the fall and in the winter and in the spring. But we still have it leveled out that even if we don't, at least we can just get by.
Okay.
Councillor?
No,
That's fine.
That's fine.
Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Your Worship, and Dallas, thanks for your presentation. After I read this, I thought to myself, you're always saying that about Nickel Beach. I thought right as soon as I said that, you kept saying it's underutilized. And the key for me was the family participation, because that's what we all, as a council, wanted. We wanted that to make sure that the families with the young kids have a place to go during the day to enjoy that beach. And a partnership, sounds like a great thing. So I was just wondering, before we make any decision on this particular item tonight, if we could have staff sit down once again with him, and I think you have another fellow with you, right? Another gentleman? No?
My
Just your
partner
wife.
is Susan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyways, I just wondered if that would be possible, because it looks to me like there's some opportunity here for us to see some improvements at the beach, and if we could just maybe defer this item until staff have a chance and come back maybe with another report to us. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. And that's what I was going to recommend to Council was, in fact, before we actually go and make a decision on this. And I have to give some history to this. Dallas called me up, I think, about a year and a half ago.
It
About a year
was,
ago.
well, the first time we met was August.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he asked me, he says, does the city have any work for me? I got a great idea for the beaches and Parks and Rec and destination planning, and my response to him was, create your own job. Come back with something, and that's exactly what you've done here. And I have to give you a lot of credit for that, because instead of having hat in hand, you're trying to come forward with something, not only as being a person of business, but also in terms of what you're trying to generate here, which is appropriate, and Councillor Kenny is correct. I've always stated for decades now that Nickel Beach, I used to work at Nickel Beach when I was a student, and it is more than just a beach, it is more than just a park, it's actually a destination. And you're bang on in terms of saying it's a regional destination. It's not just a Port Colborne destination, it's an overall regional destination. And I look, and quite frankly, you know, it's a deja vu. It's a deja vu with the conversation I had with a young lady when she was waitressing over at Smokin' Buddha one Saturday evening when I was there with my family. And she come up to me and she asked me, she goes, what would you think about wakeboarding at the marina? And I thought, let's do it. And we hooked her up with Gary Makins, our Director of Community Services at the time, and look at the success that Amanda and it was Amanda Newhouse, and her team has made with wakeboarding at the marina. It's now more of a destination for everyone, not just boaters, and a great success. And that's what I see this as possibly being. So I agree with Councillor Kenny. I think for the most part, instead of saying no, we should say how. How can we do this? And instead of allowing Nickel Beach to stagnate and flatline like it has been for the past couple of decades, as just a place to go to sit in the sand, what I like about the proposal that you're bringing forward is it targets a demographic that we should be targeting, because obviously the numbers don't lie. It is what it is. As well as share that with the traditional families that would otherwise go to the beach. But I think where you're bang on is with respect to the programming. And this is the key, the programming. I think when we look at the Valley Health and Wellness Center, we can see what programming does to a destination, and then therefore to a community. It just brings that vibrant, that active lifestyle for all ages. Port Colborne is no longer a retirement community. Port Colborne is a community for all ages where everyone belongs. And that's what I see you bringing here. So I agree with Councillor Kenny. I think we should defer this, members of council, and toss it back and punt it back to staff and allow staff to work with you to come up with something. That's the how, to come up with something that is doable with respect to your energy and your team's energy, as well as the resources that we have available to possibly bring forward a partnership that can make Nickel Beach more of a regional destination versus what it is today. Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, at the risk of being a skunk at the beach party, I want to, while I would support it going back to staff, what I do want kind of identified or dealt with is the fact that you do have residences near the beach. So when I read in the report about music all day long, that kind of thing, I'm going to be the one getting the phone calls about somebody not happy about listening to the soulful music, as nice as it may be, may not be as nice to everyone who lives just up the way. So I want that to be like an issue that is dealt with and is talked about, if this is what the will of council is. I'd also like to see kind of a breakdown, if that would be possible, of some costing for what it would be to do the 3 times a year with the machinery and the picnic tables and the garbage bins and that kind of thing. I'd like to know what that actually will be costing the city if we were to do that. So since I do represent part of, like, more east of it, but I know in other circumstances, the people that actually, own homes along there, they need to be able to enjoy their properties as well, right?
For
And so that would not include, a bunch of crazy people acting up like they're having a little bit too much fun. I like
trying
fun,
to avoid the craziness.
but to be respectful and
Thank you, Councillor.
of our neighbors. So
Thank you. Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, Mr. Waynes, it's an interesting concept, without a doubt, and I do agree, though, the beach is underutilized, without a doubt. I must say, though, since you've put the Facebook page up, and there's been a lot of activity on that, I have received a lot of phone calls. Because my ward is Ward 2, the ward that isn't nice to drive through to get to the beach, that one. Yeah, that didn't go over so well. And, you know, those are the kinds of things that you have to watch. You really have to watch that sort of thing. But I do have a reluctance to send it back to staff only for one reason. I hate to go against a staff recommendation when they're making some real sense. But I also see that we should maybe try to work with this. So it might be really helpful if all of the councillors would maybe give their input to staff so that your comments and concerns, all of our comments and concerns, could be addressed all at once instead of this thing venting and going back and forth all the time. It's easier to do it once, get it right, and come back with a finished product. But I really wish that you would take a look at some of the comments on the Facebook page and maybe address some of those, because, you know, people live in that area that you're talking about. That's not always so wonderful. And those are the people who are at that beach more than anyone. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Desmarais. Further comments or questions? Do I have a direction from council? Councillor Kenny?
I thought I did that, Your Worship, but I would ask, you know, we'll take into account what Councillor Desmarais has said as well, but I'd like it to be deferred until we at least have an opportunity to sit down. Some of those things I'm concerned about too, cost of like the garbage pickup and all those things. Keeping the washrooms clean, that's your responsibility if you're taking that on. And they are a problem, let me tell you, we always have that problem ourselves. So those are things that I'm concerned about, and I think those are things that need to be worked out, but I'd like staff and you to sit down and work those things out, and hopefully we can come back and work out some kind of partnership. But I think there's an opportunity there, and I'd like us to at least investigate it a little more thoroughly, and that's my recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. So you're going to refer it back to staff?
Refer it back to staff.
And see what they can come back with?
Yeah.
You have a
I
time?
know, you're coming home soon, right? When are you?
Sunday.
Sunday.
Yeah.
So anytime. He's home then in Port Colborne, his hometown, and he'll have lots of opportunity to meet with staff.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
And we're looking at time frame. Mr. Hakeem, what are we looking at in terms of time frame? Your mic.
Sorry, Your Worship.
In terms of the next
well,
meeting?
we could probably set up a time to meet that's mutually beneficial for certain. So.
If we can have a report back to council in the next meeting, or is that too quick?
That would be quick.
Too quick?
Yeah, that would be quick.
Following?
Mr. Mayor, if I may interject.
Sorry, hold on.
Okay.
Worship. So the following cycle?
That would be the 13th is the following week, and then the following cycle would be, sorry.
May 27th?
May 27th would be more doable, absolutely. Is it 27th?
27th is fine?
May 27th would be a closer date, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hakeem. Dallas, go ahead.
I know, allow me to speak freely on this issue. This is something that we've been trying to get together and get in this meeting for months, basically from we first met in November. November became December, became January, became February, became March, and now we sit here in April, which in our mind is already way too late. I have all these things that I'm ready to go and plan and get moving, hoping I was going to come in today and be able to now move forward, which is even, you know, with only a month left before, you know, the weather starts, well, who knows about this year, but before the weather starts getting really nice, we need to be, we need to incorporate, we need to have designs done, we need to plan to work with our partners, we need to get our website built. We have a lot of work that we have to do with, quite frankly, if we meet on May 27th, that allows us like 3 days to, that allows us only around 3 days or so before we open. I ask, I politely, kindly, sweetly ask if there's a way we can do this really quickly.
Okay, thanks, Dallas. So why don't we do this, Harry? Why don't we look at having a meeting, and if I have to call a special meeting of council, we can do that to deal with this. May 27th does cut it close, but Yeah, let's do that. Let's look at having a meeting as soon as possible, and if I have to call a special meeting of council, which I would anticipate I'm going to have to, then we'll do that. Mr. Hakeem?
Through you, Your Worship, the biggest clarification we actually had was the insurance provisions. He did ask us to carry that forward, and I don't know where, as a municipality, are we in a position to, we need clarification on insurance.
Okay, Mr.
Who's
Howe?
going to carry that?
Your Worship, without having the control over it, it's going to be a third-party coverage, and I don't think, in fact, I'm pretty sure our insurance company cannot cover this extra company. It has to be their insurance, or it has to be fully under the city's control.
Okay, so just a question to you, Mr. Howe. In the past, when we had the junior Bs run it, we had the two ladies run it years ago. How was it worked out then?
Would have been their own insurance, Your
Their own
Worship.
insurance? Okay, so that'll have to be discussed as well and solidified. Okay, Mr. Sinez?
And through you, Mr. Mayor, in addition to part of the insurance would be the speaking to the if there's going to be alcohol on the beach, then that raises the levels of insurance too.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sinez. So we're looking at a tight time frame, and a special meeting of council will be called to nail this down for Councillor Kenny's referral. Okay? Are there any further questions or comments to the motion? We got Councillor Kenny. Who seconded that? Councillor Steele. Okay, no further questions or comments. All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Thank you. Dallas, thank you.
Thank
Great
you.
work. Members of council, we're now going to move on to item 2. I'm sorry, item 1. Councillor Doucette, I didn't forget about you. You there? You're up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. This notice of motion I gave about 4 weeks ago. And whereas the Seniors Advisory Council has received a request by Ward 4 citizens to address the transit situation in Ward 4 in that area, and whereas the Transit Advisory Committee has already discussed and is evaluating the feasibility of providing such service to the Ward 4 citizens, and whereas both committees deem this request to be reasonable in nature, now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the City of Port Colborne request that all possible options concerning the provision of transit service to Ward 4 residents be explored by the Transit Advisory Committee, and that the committee return with a report for all feasible options that could provide such a service.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder to that, please? Councillor Kenny, are there any questions or comments to that? Councillor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. This has been going on for about, I'd say, 6 to 8 months now, where the Seniors Advisory Committee gets a request, and then we send it off to the transit people turn around and send it back to the Seniors Advisory Committee. And it's gone on a couple of times now. So what we've done is we've been requested by the Seniors Advisory Committee to put a motion on the floor that all options be presented to council and that the council make a decision. Ward 4 citizens are telling us that they want some kind of a service. There are different ways of having a service, and as indicated in the motion, the Transit Committee has already started looking into this. It may not be a bus completely. It may be one area where everyone congregates to. It may be a taxi service that brings them into the valet, which is the closest place, and then from there they can get on the bus and go somewhere. There are a lot of different possibilities here that could give Ward 4 citizens that particular service. The one thing we need, and the one thing that the Transit Committee, I believe, will also need, is the discussion with the 2 Ward 4 councillors. We need to find out from you people, since you know your people better than anyone else, exactly where, how, what, and so on and so forth.
one of the questions I had to one of the people that requested this was, have you spoken to your Ward 4 councillors? And they said they came to the committee. They've not necessarily discussed it too much yet with anyone else. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I hope they had discussed it with you, but if they haven't, we want you as part of this because we need you to be able to make a reasonable decision. And if it's at all possible, I mean, one of the options in here maybe we just can't do it. That's a possible option here. And I think everyone has to understand that one of the possible options from the Transit Committee is that it just cannot happen. It's just not possible. It's not feasible. It's too expensive, or there are other logistics involved that where we can't. But I believe it can be done in some way, shape, or form. Exactly what that form will take, I don't know.
Thank you, Councillor Doucette. Further questions or comments? I have Councillor Steele and Councillor Demery.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Doucette. Timelines for this, and will it be ready for next year's budget deliberations?
Thank you, Councillor
Steele. If that's the process.
Thank you. Councillor Doucette?
That's what we're hoping for. We need to find out if it can be done. We were hoping, and I believe the Transit Committee had discussed the fact of if we can come up with some form of option, can we maybe run it over the summer just to see what kind of request or demand it would give us, so that we can come back to the Budget Committee next year and say, hey, this worked, these are the numbers, you know, and go from there. One of the issues is we're not sure exactly what the demand will be. And the demand over the summer may very well be much higher than the demand over the winter. So it may only be a seasonal thing. That's another option. It may only be 2 days in the week. That's another possible option. There are a lot of options that have to be studied and then come back to this particular council and say, yes, we can do it. There's money there to try it out. There's no money to try it out. Do you guys have anything? I'm not sure exactly what format it's going to take, but we need to find out, because the citizens in Ward 4, the ones that I've spoken to and the ones that have approached me, are asking for this.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Steele?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the CAO. With regards to Councillor Doucette's comments about a trial period during the summer, how would we pay for that?
Mr. Howe?
That's a good question. One I don't have the answer for. And there isn't any funding available unless there's something in a reserve. And I would ask, Your Worship, if possible, if the Treasurer could speak to it.
Thank you, Mr. Howe. Mr. Sinez?
It's through you, Mr. Mayor. If there was a pilot project that was going to be brought forward, then there is some funds in the reserve, and that would be part of the report that would come back to council.
Thank you, Mr.
So there are
Sinez.
some.
Councillor?
Transit reserve? Yes. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also sit on the Seniors Advisory Committee, and we've had lengthy discussion around rural transit. We don't have any idea what the demand for it is, and that's why we had wanted the two ward councillors to get involved. In their interactions with their constituents, they could certainly suss that number out, see who may want to have this service available to them. At this point, I only know of 2 people. So, and that's really not enough to start planning pilot programs and everything. We really do need to find out if there is a demand for it. I think that before anything else. No point in talking numbers until you find out if there is a demand, because if there isn't, it dies there. If there is, then you want to go farther.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Butters?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, if Councillor Demery has 2, then I know of one other person, and that's there's only one other person that I can think of that's ever said anything to me about getting the bus out further. But she only lived out near the old Humberston School, and that school, coming up to that school, is still within the urban boundary. So if the thought process was transit is for an urban situation as opposed to a rural, I suppose it could come out that far, just in terms of a route thing, right? And she's the only person has ever approached me other than the two that you've spoken with, and I happen to know one of the two. Nobody else has ever, and Ron and I we just had a ward meeting about month, 6 weeks ago, roughly, and it wasn't raised at the ward meeting. Nothing came of it at the ward meeting. We have ward meetings on a regular basis. It's never been raised. And I say, other than the one phone call, and that lady happens to live along Clawley Street East, near Old Humberston School. And she just wondered if the route could more include that at some point, maybe. Most of us that live out in the sticks have cars or a truck, because you have to be able to get into town. I understand, like, there may be students, there could be other people who maybe no longer can drive, that may be dependent on other people to cart them around. But if there's more of those people out there, then I need them to contact me or Councillor Bodner to let us know that. Because up until now, Angie's two and the one I know, that's it that I know of. So if you're out there and you think this service is something that is important to you, then it would be really good for you to call Councillor Bodner or myself. Be happy to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Weathers. Well said. Members of council, any further questions or comments? The only comments I would have to make, and this is somewhat near and dear to my heart, because as members of council do recognize, I did bring a motion to the region asking for a One Niagara Transit, and to be dealt with by month end June of 2013. The intent then is to debate one consolidated transit system for the entire region of Niagara, and I think those reasons are obvious. Those options will be coming forward once again in June, and it's my anticipation that not only will it be hotly debated, but as well what will be, I guess the dialogue is really going to revolve around the areas that are rural, West Lincoln, Waynfleet, the rural areas of each municipality, and what's in it for us, so to speak. But I think for the most part, you really must give the opportunity, or at least the dialogue, or begin the dialogue to have that discussion. When you look at Ward 4, and I agree with Councillor Doucette, when you look at Ward 4, whether it's one person, 100 people, or 1,000 people coming forward, we have to respect that opinion and that input. With that said, we can't dismiss the fact that we have Sherkston Shores. We can't dismiss the fact that Sherkston Shores makes up for a great part of our community population in the summer months, as well as, at the very least, looking at possibly surveying those folks to find out exactly if they would in fact take advantage of transit for the following reasons. Would they come into Port Colborne versus Ridgeway to shop? Would the ones that don't drive, that are between the ages of, let's say, I don't want to go too young, because as a parent I wouldn't allow my kids to go, on their own, but let's say between 14 and 16, or even 13 and 16, would they allow their kids to come into the Valley Center to go for a swim, to go for a skate, to go to the Y, to take advantage of some of the camps that the programming that the Y is going to be putting forward is going to offer not only our residents, but those summer residents over at Sherkston Shores. And the list goes on. I'm not going to get into it all, because I'm sure that can happen at a later date. But my point is that I agree with Councillor Doucette that the dialogue has to be had, and Councillor Butters, for you to offer your and Councillor Bodner's time is commendable. But I think if in fact the media is going to print this, or if those who are watching on COGECO are going to air it and people are going to watch it, then in fact, by all means, let's start that dialogue. At the very least, this year, we can get that survey out to Sherkston, possibly even out to the residents of Ward 4, to see if in fact we can cut through a lot of the guessing and look at pinpointing some of the areas that may in fact may be best to utilize this service. Again, it's not let's get rid of that word no, and let's look at the word how. How can we make this work, especially if it's going to bring more revenue into the service, and ultimately be a benchmark for the regional service to be able to provide the overall city of Port Colborne, including its rural area, and of course Sharks and Shores. So I think it's healthy to look at, and I would encourage council to look at it. And then from there, we can come to the reality of what that conclusion may in fact be. Okay. Any further comments or questions? With that, I will go back to the main motion that has been moved by Councillor Doucette. All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried unanimously. Thanks, guys. Okay, and we'll now move on to item 2. Councillor Desmarais, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Department of Planning and Development Report Number 2013-09, subject 2012 Year-End Results, Community Improvement Plan Incentive Programs, that this report be received for information purposes.
Thank you, Councillor Desmarais, and I appreciate you lifting this. The reason why, members of council, I wanted to see this lifted today is because we are somewhat of an anomaly here in the city of Port Colborne, having put forward 6 community improvement plans since, I believe, 2008, and for the most part, getting through them quite rapidly. And I wanted to give Mr. Aquilina, who's been, I guess for the lack of a better word, championing this process with your team down on the second floor within planning, an opportunity to really highlight this report, because I think it's very important for the people of Port Colborne to understand how we're going through improving the community in the different areas of the community. Mr. Aquilina?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening to you. This is something that I annually have brought forward to council as a good news item that shows to the community what we're actually doing and how we're doing it and why it's working. Since 2008, council has actually funded annually incentive program monies. This past year and the previous year, there's been $50,000 allocated towards that. Last year, we actually ate up the $50,000. This year, we've actually had 20 applications processed and approved, resulting in $49,935. 20 applications were received. Previous to this, 17 applications were received. Again, we consumed all of the $50,000 that council graciously put forward. The region of Niagara also matches monies for the most part. So for this year, 2012, we actually had $81,000 that was allocated. City monies as well as regional money. So I want to give some kudos to the region for also supporting this. As the mayor had mentioned, we have 5 City of Port Colborne community improvement plans and 1 Region of Niagara community improvement plan, being the Gateway Center. We have the downtown Old Humberston Main Street CIP. We have the downtown BIA CIP. We have the Brownfield CIP. We have the East Waterfront CIP, and we have our industrial CIP. So these programs that we have in place actually have leveraged other monies, and actually we see improvements that are being undertaken. Attached to the report, you will see the appendices, and you'll see the before and after pictures. So it's a good news story. I can report to council that 2013, again, council graciously put $50,000 in place. We are almost at the point where there are no more monies available. So it's a good news story, and again, come next year, we're going to have a report again for council's information to show how these CIPs actually have worked, how they are actually being taken advantage of, how the word is being spread, and actually you can see the results throughout the community of how these programs are actually improving and revitalizing the different areas of the city. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Aquilina. Any questions or comments to this? I just want to expand a bit, members of council, because sometimes it's over at the region that we see a lot of this work being done, and I try to get it back to you folks, but it's sometimes difficult. I think for the most part, the Old Humberston Main Street CIP, in tandem with all the partners, it's obvious what's been done. Just take a drive down Main Street and you can see exactly how it's come out. The Brownfield Community Improvement Plan, you can see a lot of what's been happening through the derelict properties, the incentives to include the private sector with respect to those derelict properties, old gas stations, old properties like that, making some of those properties available. Councillor Kenny, this is near and dear to your heart, to some property owners adjacent to those properties. The downtown BIA, we had a delegation today, and hopefully there will be some money allocated in the future for that area. The East Waterfront Community Improvement Plan, again, You know, again, with the delegation that we had here tonight, hopefully something can be worked out to further that along, as well as some of the work that we're planning on doing along the waterfront, and then therefore igniting some interest in the residential area to help revitalize one of the older parts of the community. The Industrial Community Improvement Plan, one thing I wanted to touch on there too as well, is that in tandem with that, you have the region who's just waived industrial development charges for the next 2 years, as well as all the incentives included in the Gateway, and of course the Gateway Economic Zone, which also has its own CIP. The bottom line here is that when you look at the area, the southern part of the region, and Port Colborne in particular, let's face it, government does not create jobs. The private sector creates jobs. What we do as government is we create a better environment for the private sector to create jobs. And that's what these CIPs are doing in both the industrial and commercial retail sectors. So hats off to you, Dan, for being the architect of a lot of this, working with Patrick Robson at the region and his team, but as well making available incentives, development-ready lands, properties, as well as it working with our infrastructure, such as transportation-related, and of course our location. And we're going to hear a report on that in the future, or later on this evening, with the reasoning behind businesses starting to come to Port Colborne. And this is a main component of those businesses coming into the city. So great work by everybody at both levels, the municipal, local, as well as the regional level. So with that, members of council, I do have a mover in Councillor Desmarais. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Doucette. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to item 5. Councillor Danch.
Department of Engineering and Operations Engineering Division, report number 2013-13, subject information report, Kalali Street West reconstruction update. This report is presented for information, and
thank you, Councillor Danch. Yep. Do I have a seconder to that, please? Councillor Kenny. I'm going to ask Mr. Lee to give us a short update, because they've really started working in well, today they were just banging away at it. Smoke everywhere and dust everywhere, and so I'm sure a lot of people that don't read the paper often or watch COGECO often are asking what the heck's going on down in Kalali West. So if you want to give us an update, that would be great. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The utilities have started their relocations under the regional contract. Canadian Niagara Power is the first utility that's on site. After them will be COGECO, then Enbridge, and then Bell, with the relocation and to accommodate the, especially the parking in the Lionsfield area. There's a great deal of relocation required to accommodate that, along with some of the intersection improvements. As stated in the report, the timetabling is projected there. The city's version of the water main under the region's contract will go to construction early in the fall to be completed hopefully before early winter, at which point the region's road reconstruction project can then commence early in the spring and with completion in late spring. That's the intent right now.
Great, thank you, Chris. And the reason why I wanted that lifted this evening, councillors, is simply because this is not going to be an overnight job. Okay, this is going to be a long haul. And I really do ask the residents to be very patient with this, because it's been a long time coming. It's a $6 million project. And the region's been kind enough to finally, after years of, and I'm talking years, of banging away at this one, to get this job done. It is bringing it up to urban standards, current urban standards, right from King, all the way down, pretty well down, just past Yale Street. So we're looking at a lot of work we're looking at pretty well the Knoll area. But pretty well you're looking at from everything under the ground, from water, wastewater, you're looking at all the utilities, Enbridge, hydro, phone, and then of course on top of the ground with respect to the road being brought up to urban standard, gutter, as well as sidewalks. So it's a big job, and again, my point is it's not going to happen overnight. We're going to be looking into next spring before final completion. So be very patient. Okay, it has been moved and seconded. Any further questions or comments on that, especially from the ward councillors? Frank and B, you're okay? You'll look after it? I'm sure you will. Members with no further questions or comments, all those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thanks, guys. We'll now move on to item 11. Councillor Kenny?
Thank you, Your Worship. Department of Economic Development, Tourism and Marketing Report number 2014-04, subject agreement of purchase and sale, Synergy Stamping, Inc. The recommendation is that one, council enter into an agreement of purchase and sale with Synergy Stamping, Inc. for the purchase of Part 44 on Plan 59R 3863, except Parts 2 and 3 on Plan 59R 13616, just says plus HST if applicable, as attached. 2, the mayor, city clerk, and solicitor be authorized to sign and execute any and all documents respecting the sale of these lands. And 3, that the appropriate bylaw be presented for approval and executed by the mayor and city clerk.
Thank you, Councillor. Seconded by Councillor Desmarais. Are there any questions or comments to this? The only comment I'm going to make, and I make it very brief because it's in your report, and I'm going to ask Stephen to speak on this as well because he's been working on this for quite some time. That it is a pleasure, obviously, to bring this report before council with respect to the lands that are being purchased by Synergy Stamping. It is a company that's currently employing 20 individuals and indicates that it intends to employ 30 employees after construction of a 40,000 square foot building on this particular site. Synergy is currently located in Mississauga. And with that, they have agreed to build on this property within the next 2 years. Stephen and I had the pleasure to meet with the proponents last week, and they made it very clear on the reasoning behind the need for this property as well as their intentions. Although 20 to 30 employees today, 40,000 square feet today, full intentions on expanding quickly, which is one of the reasons why they're moving from Mississauga, a great community, Hazel Country, love it, but unfortunately limited to expandability because of the land or lack of land available to these folks. But they were very clear. Our location, the benefit of our logistics infrastructure, the canal, rail, road, being on the border, but most importantly, the land to be able to expand on was the reasoning behind it. A lot of the incentives are going to take full advantage of, as I mentioned earlier. And with that, Port Colborne was their choice. I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to allow Stephen to expand on it even further based on the work that he's done with them throughout the past year and a half. Mr. Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I will be brief. Just to add a little bit of context, a little bit of background, this is a company that we did work with over the past year. The company made a decision quite quickly. Many of these do go through a decision phase for even longer than that. The company is a direct result of our business recruitment efforts based on the advantages that we do have here in Port Colborne. The name of the company doesn't always fully jump out in terms of describing what the company does. The company makes lighting fixtures, much like the fluorescent or LED fixtures that you might see in a supermarket or a department store or another retail type scenario. Much of their product is exported to the U.S. So the discussions that we have in terms of being a gateway and a potential foreign trade zone also are definitely key, as well as transportation across the border. Workforce being very key. While a contingent of their employees will come, which is great news because more residents for the area, they'll also be hiring the majority of their workforce from the existing residents that we have within the area. So that's more good news once again. The last point I guess I would make builds on what the mayor mentioned with the community improvement plans and the other programs that Mr. Aquilina spoke on in more detail. I'm anticipating this will probably be the first company that will be approaching us with respect to the industrial community improvement plan, and is a testament to the importance of having a plan like that. And I have had calls from other municipalities over just the past few days saying, industrial community improvement plan, how do we develop one of those? So it definitely is an exciting opportunity for Port Colborne.
Thank you, Stephen. Well said. Members of council, any questions or comments further? With none, all those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you, members. I believe that is it for the items. It is. Great job, guys. Now we'll move on to notices of motion. B, you got that look on your face again. What's up? What are you doing down there? Did I miss something? Are you acting up? Actually, is she acting up again? Members, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this portion of the meeting. Councillor Demeray, Councillor Steele, are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. Chief, before you take off, I need to talk to you for a second, so don't leave so quick. Members, we're now going to move on to the regular council meeting agenda. We do have a meeting that I'm going to call to order now and ask the clerk if she has any addendum items to add to the agenda.
Thank you. None this evening.
Thank you, Ashley. If I can have a motion to confirm the agenda, please. Councillor Steele, Councillor Doucette. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Disclosures of interest. With none, I am going to move on to minutes, but I'm going to need to separate these minutes because Councillor Butters wants to discuss one set of minutes. So I'm going to, if you don't mind, have them separated. I'll look for a mover and seconder for each set, please. The first set is the minutes of the 11th meeting special of council dated March 25th, 2013. Councillor Butters, Councillor Steele, questions or comments? All those in favor? That's the one you want to, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. I have a pretty extensive document that was emailed to both myself and Ashley. I think you all received it, and the request is that it be included in this set of minutes. And I'm going to put a motion forward that it be included. I checked him, and like I take notes during these meetings as well, and a lot of the things that were in that document that Sherry Rustin sent actually was in my minutes, but you know, and this is in no way reflects on the person who takes the minutes, but I think in terms of this particular issue, it deals with the public meeting regarding the proposed rezoning out at Empire Road and Shirkstrom Road. It's a pretty contentious issue. I think that any time that a group of citizens takes the time to go back through the COGECO tape to kind of, you know, put together what they feel are either omissions or errors, it's worth us making sure that their thoughts are respected on that as well. So I'm going to put that motion forward that they be included in its entirety, and hopefully I will get a seconder to that.
Thank you, Councillor.
And amend the minutes to include.
Okay, so
those remarks.
I just want to be clear on what you're asking for. So you want to include these as the minutes, amend the actual minutes that were taken at the meeting?
I want the minutes amended to include what Sherry Rustin has sent in its entirety, and that we will be accepting that as the record.
Okay.
Along with, as part of the record, along with the minutes that were taken.
Okay, I have a seconder, Councillor Demeray. And questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Doucette.
I believe there is a procedure that exists that would allow that constituent to send some of that whole package into either Mr. Aquilina or the city clerk, and it would be included in a package. I don't see the need to do this. I mean, I have no problems doing it, but I'm just wondering about procedure more than anything else. Is there a need for this to be done simply because it can be sent in part of the package anyway? So I just want to understand the reasoning behind it.
Thank you, Councillor. Go ahead, Councillor Butters.
Thank you. I think it is important that they are included as part of that public record and as part of the minutes that we accept as being accurate. I'm going to just point out a couple of things that were brought to my attention that are actually in error and that were part of the minutes that were created. When it comes to just the people that signed against, no decision, and signed the petition, the numbers weren't correct. So when it said 30 out of 92 signed against, 30, that we only had 30. It should be 92. For 15 that people, no decision, they didn't care whether the zoning went through or not. We had 0. We didn't even have that reflected in our minutes. 128 actually signed the petition, but we acknowledge in our minutes only 86. But in actual fact, the number is much larger. So I think it's important that, and that's just an example of of either an error or additional information that somehow is missed. I don't know how to explain it, but when I see there's, and the numbers and the documents I have here to substantiate that. So that's why I say I think it is important that we acknowledge it as part of that public record, as part of that public meeting, and as part of those minutes, because all that stuff counts at the end of the day, especially if something like this ends up at the OMB. And that's my pitch.
Thank you, Councillor.
You're welcome.
Councillor Steele.
Well, my question was along the same lines as Councillor Doucette. What is the procedure for this? Unfortunately, I couldn't open the package. I wasn't able to open it. So maybe the clerk has a better idea of how we should do this, or even the planner, because it was an official planning meeting. So if those two can enlighten us on this, and not being able to see it, is there information within that package that really wasn't presented at the meeting? Or can it be added to the whole package, as Councillor Doucette says, of the planning issue with regards to the report coming forward? What is the best way to do this?
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are two methods that council can use in order to respond. First, as has happened this evening, a member of council can bring forward a recommendation in order to amend the minutes, and that would result in me having to withdraw the minutes this evening, make actual changes as outlined in the submission, and then bring them forward once more for council's adoption. The alternative would be that the submission that was provided would be sent to the planning division and become part of the file, the planning file. Instead of changing the minutes, which the planning division has said that it's their interpretation that the minutes are correct. So in this situation, the submission would simply be put in the file, form part of the public record in that case, and would be, if there was an appeal, it would also be part of the public file on the planning application.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Aquilina, do you want to comment on that? You're good? Okay. Councillor Steele? Okay, Mr. Howe.
Your Worship, one of the things about the minutes, we go to the Municipal Act and deal with what the law says. It's supposed to be the notes. And Port Colborne has I think, a fairly good process of minutes. It has, in the official minutes of this council and committee, there is a generalized discussion about what it's about, so it gives some context into the decision-making, which I believe is the proper way to do minutes. A lot of municipalities have the motion, and that's it, because that's the interpretation. In planning, it's a little bit different. In a public meeting, and although it's called a special council meeting, it is in fact a meeting under the Planning Act, and technically members of council are invited to attend. It's called a special council because of the structure and the control that can be maintained, the order. Really, it's really for the order. But as you can see, it went on for 3.5 or 4.5 hours. Public meeting can do that. Council meetings don't because of the time limits that you have in procedure bylaw. But public meetings are to try to get all the comments made. Now, the minutes themselves reflect generally, this council doesn't record verbatim, they reflect generally what was said, what was presented. The minutes form an official record, as do every piece of correspondence and item. Where there is a dispute in minutes, or there is a dispute in the record, the actual document that's submitted does and becomes as integral a component of the record as the minutes themselves. That record becomes very important. If there's an appeal to the intermunicipal board, for example, by either from a decision of council to approve or not approve, either side can appeal. There is a trial de novo, a new hearing, a new consideration, and all of that information gets resubmitted to the intermunicipal board. Yes, the board looks at all the facts, but all of the comments, all the letters, all the records form an integral component of the data and of that file. When council receives its recommendation report from planning, these minutes are going to be attached, but so is every item of correspondence. And if there is a technical error in the minutes, then if the minutes are incorrect on that basis, they should be corrected. But generally speaking, since council does not verbatim record and report those, generally speaking, and if I read the minutes myself, I could see generally what the conversation was. Is it specific to fact? There will be salient points and specific facts that are not included in the minutes because we're not doing it verbatim. If there's an error, it needs to be corrected. But generally the minutes do reflect what's going on, and it is the public record sent in by specific letter, by presentation, by submission, which is key and so important to be part of that record. So if there's a mistake in the record, we should correct it. That's one. But two, if there are other points that should be added or should be considered to be added, that record is just as important as the minutes themselves and should reflect that and will become a part of the actual report that comes forward from the Planning Committee once the process has gone through to input all the public record.
Thank you, Mr. Howe. Further questions or comments? Members? Councillor Butters.
I've got a hard copy of what was sent, and when I see error, omission, and there's like several pages, they sat through that COGECO tape diligently, stopping, starting, when compared the minutes that were written, and when I see error and omission in this, then that tells me that this deserves a second look, because it does form that record, and that's extremely important. It's important to certainly the people, you know, on both sides of that fence in Shirkston, and so that's why I'm asking that we do the right thing in my mind and include them appropriately and properly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. One of the concerns I have here is that means that we have to pull this if we follow one procedure, and we delay it, which is even 2 weeks. I mean, the proponent that was here was concerned about the fact of even going past another week. If the procedure of sending all of this over to planning and it becoming part of the record gives us exactly the same thing, then why are we delaying 2 weeks? And that's why, and I don't see a reason for doing that if it's going to achieve exactly and it doesn't delay anything.
Thank you. Councillor Butters.
I have to wonder why then do we get minutes and approve them? Or if we see errors or omissions, they would have to go back through the clerk's office. So why would we now, this has been brought to our attention, our collective attention, that there is concern over these minutes. And these folks have asked for this to be included. Why? Because it's going to, what is it going to delay in the planning? Whatever's happening out of Dan Aquilina's office on this file is going to continue on its path, is it not? Like whatever work you have to do on this file, that just continues on, whether these minutes are amended or not. Is that not correct, sir?
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Aquilina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our report will address all of the comments that were received, both in hard copy submission at the public meeting and then thereafter. So our report is going to address all of those issues. We have generally what the feedback was from the public, and we will address those. We're not going to specifically pinpoint a certain part of the minutes that may be omitted, for example, or may have been an error. Generally, we know what the neighbors' concerns were. Whatever council directs as part of what they want to accept as the minutes, we'll address those. I look to have a report ready for council for a recommendation on the first meeting in May. Whatever council decides this evening, formally, unless council approves the minutes tonight as amended, I'm going to address those anyways. So if they're not formally approved by council on the 15th, or until the 15th, I'm still going to include those correspondence that even we received today from Mrs. Rustin. I'll include those, and I'll address those in the recommendation report.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Aquilina. Councillor?
I think this is, so in other words, it's not going to delay anything in terms of what you need to do on this file one way or another.
No.
So I don't think that Councillor Doucette's concern then there shouldn't be a concern on that. But what this does say that if we can pass this motion to include this, it does say that we respect the folks out at Shirkston, and we do respect the fact that they've gone to a hell of a lot of work, and this council has a respect for that work done. And the need to have these minutes accurately, in a bigger way, reflect what happened that night.
Thank you, Councillor. And I'm going to read from an email that am I allowed to do this? I can read from this? If you feel it's a public request, okay, thank you. I just don't want to put you in an awkward position, feeling uncomfortable. Pardon me? Ashley received an email from Sherry today, and basically what she's asking for is that, and I'll read it verbatim, that we request that the package we submitted to you through email today, along with the letters and petitions being brought to council tonight, submitted at the March 25th, 2013 meeting, be submitted by you to the Planning Department. We request that our notes do not get summarized and that they are included in the recommendation report to council in their entirety. So I don't want to guess what she's saying here, because she's saying, and I know she would like the minutes amended, but at the same time, I think what she's asking in this here is that simply that the recommendation report include what you have in your hand. So I go back to the options. The options are to have the minutes amended, and Ashley would bring those amended minutes back at that meeting, which wouldn't slow down the process. Dan's going to address them regardless. And the report's going to come to council at that meeting, and of course the minutes would be separate to that, and they would be voted on appropriately by council. The second option is to simply attach to Dan's report her amended minutes that she's or put together today and has forwarded to yourself as well as members of council. That's why I wanted to know exactly what you're actually recommending, was to amend the minutes or to simply have within the report that Dan's going to bring to council her more, I'll use the word, specific comments with respect to what had happened that evening. Councillor?
I think that she, from what the best I can understand, is her first wish would be that the minutes be amended. If that's not possible, then that would be like option 2.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so let's go to the motion. Councillor Butters' motion is to actually amend the minutes, and then therefore Ashley would have to come back at the next meeting with a set of the amended minutes for council approval. Okay? Are there any further questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Steele.
If you're talking about amendments, I did ask a question of Ms. Grenier with regards to the business, and it actually states here Shirkston Shores Resort. I didn't speak about Shirkston Shores Resort. It may have been talked about by one of the councillors that evening. I actually talked about Shirkston Go-Karts, which is kitty corner to the property in question, or his land goes kitty corner. It's everybody knows where it is on Empire Road. So my concern was the noise coming from the go-kart track, not the fireworks, which is another concern, I suppose, but it doesn't seem to be a concern at this time. But it was go-karts, not Shirkston Shores.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions or comments from members of council? Any questions or comments from members of staff? Go ahead.
Worship, the only thing I'm going to say is that the minutes should be properly reflective of what was done at the meeting.
Thank you.
If there's any mistakes, they need to be corrected.
Thank you. Members of council, your pleasure on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Butters, for bringing that forward. We're now going to move on to the minutes of the 12th meeting special of council of April 8th, 2013. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Kenny. Seconder, Councillor Danch. Questions or comments to that? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Finally, the minutes of the 13th meeting regular of council, dated April 8th, 2013. Mover and seconder, please. I have Councillor Desmarais. Seconder, Councillor Kenny. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Are there any items for council's separate discussion? With none, mover and seconder for those items listed on your agenda. Councillor Steele, Councillor Doucette. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Members, I do have two proclamations here that I'm going to be asking for your pleasure with respect to a mover and seconder. The first being that whereas Administrative Professionals Day is observed to recognize the work of secretaries, administrative assistants, receptionists, and other administrative support professionals. And whereas since 1952, the International Association of Administrative Professionals has sponsored Administrative Professionals Week. And whereas Administrative Professionals Week is celebrated to recognize the professionals upon whose skills, loyalty, and efficiencies the functions of business and government offices depend. I wouldn't just say government offices, I would go beyond that into the private sector as well. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Van Sam Badaway, proclaim the week of April 21st through April 27th, 2013 as Administrative Professionals Week, and Wednesday, April 24th, 2013 as Administrative Professionals Day here in the city of Port Colborne. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Danch and Councillor Butters. Questions or comments? I just have to say one thing, that this is appropriate. I know my assistant, I don't call her a secretary because she's not. She's pretty well my right and left arm most days. She's my, yeah, my boss. Yeah, pretty well. Pretty well. But I can say with some authority that with my assistant, it's second to none. She's wonderful, and I can speak with confidence when I look at my staff here, Stephen and Harry and Peter and Chris and with Ron and of course Dan and of course Mr. Heil with Bob. Our assistants give us nothing but 150% or about 100%. They work tirelessly, not only here in government but also in the private sector. For those that are watching, believe me, you guys do a great job and a great service to not only the communities, the regions, the provinces, the nation, as well as within the private sector. Just simply put, us folks just wouldn't be able to do what we do without you. And it's just most appropriate that we declare the week as well as the day as Administrative Professionals Day, because once again, they're a part of the team that just simply put, the team wouldn't be able to win without. So to all those folks out there, give yourselves a pat in the back, because you very well deserve it. So with that, members of council, I need a mover and seconder, please. I already got it, don't I? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Thank you. What was that? Was that a phone? Was that a phone or an iPad?
Tinkerbell just came in.
Are they already calling you about transit? Larry needs milk and bread. Yeah. Members of council, the second proclamation is that whereas honeybees are responsible and for, let me rephrase that. Whereas honeybees are responsible, that threw me off there for a second. I have to admit it. Honeybees are responsible. Okay, where's this thing going? Yeah, whereas honeybees are responsible for approximately a third of all food we eat because they are responsible for 70% of food crop pollination. They are our keystone species, the very cornerstone to the sustainability of our agriculture and the stability of our environment. And whereas honeybees continue to disappear at alarming rates here in Canada and in every country where they are raised, and whereas primary of all known solutions continues to be public education, awareness, and active government participation in a resolution to this crisis. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Van Sam Badaway, do hereby proclaim Wednesday, May 29, 2013, as Day of the Honeybee here in the city of Port Colborne. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Desmarais, who looks very tired. Yawning. Have a seconder, please. Councillor Danch. Questions or comments, members? All those in favor? Opposed? That'll be carried. Thank you. I really didn't know where that was going. I guess I should have read it before the meeting, yeah. Members, we don't have any minutes of boards and committees this evening. Notices of motion. Are there any notices of motion, members? With none, Madam Clerk, the introduction of the bylaws, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, that the following bylaws be read first, second, third time and finally passed. Bylaw 59434913, being a bylaw to authorize entering into an agreement of purchase and sale with J. Oscom Steel Fabricators Limited for the sale of approximately 1.21 acres of industrial land, and to repeal bylaw number 592834413. Bylaw 59445013, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 431014602, a bylaw prescribing on and off-street parking for persons with disabilities within the city of Port Colborne. Bylaw 59455113, being a bylaw to authorize entering into a bulk water sales agreement with high-quality drinking water supply and services. Bylaw 59465213, being a bylaw to set and levy the rates of taxation for city purposes for the year 2013. And finally, bylaw 59475313, being a bylaw to authorize entering into an agreement of purchase and sale with Synergy Stamping, Inc., respecting Loyalist Industrial Park, Part Lot 30, Concession 3.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before I ask for a mover and seconder, would it be appropriate to defer the one bylaw until after the closed session meeting? If it's council's will to do so, Mr. Howe? You think we should? Go ahead.
I don't want to preclude council. Your worship, I suggest that you have a brief discussion. I supplied that confidential memorandum. If everything's fine, all right, but I just, I don't want to presuppose council.
Members of council, we do have the first bylaw that does identify what your memo was about today. I'll leave it to you to either defer it until after the meeting or pass it right now. Okay, so can I have a mover and seconder to entertain the remainder of the bylaws? Okay, we'll deal with that first. B's moving it. Who's seconding it? Angie? Okay. Questions or comments to that? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Move to defer the first bylaw until after the closed session. Councillor Butters. Seconder? Councillor Danch. All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to the confirmatory bylaw. Taking into consideration the deferral.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That the following bylaw be read 3 times and finally passed. Bylaw 59485413, being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne at its regular meeting, April 22nd, 2013.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Danch, seconder. Councillor Kenny. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Before I ask for a motion to go into closed session, I do want to announce our next meetings. Our next meeting will be Monday, April 29th, which is next Monday. This will be dealing with a special meeting of council, a business planning session that I've put forward. And primarily, a lot of that meeting will be consumed by the discussion, as Councillor Butters mentioned earlier, regarding the fire department, the master plan. And as the chief had mentioned, those members of council that will be in attendance, please go through the reports, because it's very in-depth and there's some very important decisions that have to be made at that particular meeting. The following meeting will be on Monday, May 13th, 2013. By the way, the 29th will be here in the chamber beginning at 6:30. I'm sorry, 5:30. The following meeting, Monday, May 13th, 2013, Committee of the Whole and Council meeting, once again here in the chamber beginning at 6:30 p.m. And finally, I do want to mention that the WFN, World Fishing Network, voting is still going on. In the first week, we've gained 16,000 votes, so we're rolling pretty good. Apparently, that's how we roll here in Port Colborne, and that's great. So for all you folks that are really taking part in this once again, as well as members of city staff, I know a lot of you are into this again, night and day. Thank you. It's very appropriate because we all do know that the city of Port Colborne, on behalf of the Niagara region, is the fishing capital of Canada, and we want to ensure that everyone knows that. So by all means, continue to vote, and let's solidify that designation. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session so that council can proceed to entertain the minutes of the closed session portion of the April 8, 2013 regular meeting of council. B, the confidential correspondence from Lancaster, Brooks and Welsh, LLP, providing legal advice concerning a development here in the city of Port Colborne within an industrial park, pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 2392F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Members of council, the noted correspondence will be given to you in the closed session. And finally, memorandum from the Chief Administrative Officer dated April 22nd, 2013, concerning the potential sale of city-owned land pursuant to Municipal Act 2001, subsection 2392C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or the local board. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session. Councillor Steele, Councillor Kenny, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. You're opposed, Councillor Butters. That will be carried. We'll now go into closed session. Have a great week.